There's our clap right there.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear ye. A match made in heaven.
Just not say anything. This is the entire ad.
What is the the camera is usually on the bottom?
That's what I was
Or
wondering.
did you flip it?
Oh, that's why the frame was freaking weird.
Is it gonna be fine?
Yeah, I think so. Double check over here. It looks fine. Yeah.
Lean into the table.
Lean into the light. Hello. Welcome to This Podcast Is Not For You. My name is Jake.
My name is Trevor Smith.
My name is Wes.
And this episode is brought to you by Monday, Zero Alcohol Whiskey and Spirits for 10% off of everything store-wide. Use our code NOT4U10. It is, yes, exactly what I said. Zero Alcohol Whiskey,
Needless
Spirits.
to say, we've been going through these bottles.
And they just released a mezcal, which Jay told me this weekend is basically,
Is it like tequila?
I think so. I can't remember, but I think that's what he said.
Mezcal.
Yep, never heard of it. So if you want to try out their NA mezcal, use our code NOT4U10 at their
NA.
drinkmonday.co.
What
Yeah.
are we?
that's
What
good.
are we drinking?
This
NA.
This is a
Not applicable.
sort of a whiskey cold brew with some lemon zest. So
Here we go.
Interesting.
What's his face? Every time.
What?
Interesting.
Every time.
That's not the face I was.
Can't help it.
Interesting. Yeah,
I like it.
I think I like it too. You can't. It's man. That's.
Watch his face.
The whiskey's just there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around.
Oh man, the zest hit me late.
There it is.
I like that. That's good.
It's okay. I think I like last
think
time's coffee.
It seems
one
like
that you
the
made the most
whiskey
so far.
works better with more drinks than the gin does. I feel like the gin's a little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
more.
This entire episode is a review
Niche.
of Monday.
We'll do that eventually. We just need to get some more drinks under our belt. Today we are talking about the importance of creative outlets.
creativity.
This is
being original.
getting back to our roots. Our first
Yeah.
episode was creativity in a small town. And we've just been so busy creating in a small town that we
Yeah.
haven't really gotten back to that topic. So today we're going to be talking about creating in a small town. No, we're not.
'Cause that's what we're
gonna be
Part two.
talking. Part
Well,
two.
kind of. Yeah.
Yes. We the importance of creative outlets.
Essentially,
The town's a little
the-
bit bigger than it was the last time we talked about
Essentially, the importance of being creative and more so than the location that you're being creative in.
Right. Yes, and what it does for you. Blah
Yeah.
blah blah. Yes. So we will just go ahead and we will start the episode now.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
We could talk about this forever,
Yes, we could.
but we're not gonna.
Clearly, Jake has a
right.
lot to say about this episode.
Creativite outlets play a big role in each of our lives.
This is Jake's episode.
He's
Okay.
super into it.
Here we go.
Nope, I blocked it.
So we've got our own creative outlets individually and collectively now, actually. It's
Yeah.
called This Podcast Is
Right.
Not For You. Check it out at youtube.com/This Podcast Is Not For You. Not really. We don't have our own URL yet. We need 100 subscribers. So if you haven't listened to us on YouTube or watched us on YouTube,
Is that
please
the
subscribe.
requirement?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sounded like it was.
This is our Patreon.
The internet will take you down if you don't have at least 100.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
This
That's a-
Elon's, he's a stakeholder now.
Of the internet.
Yeah. So we have our own projects and interests and,
Things that we feed our energy into.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That have no real utilitarian value, let's say.
Most,
in terms of
yeah.
we do a lot of stuff that we don't get paid for. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
We don't get paid for this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sign up for our Patreon.
Yet.
So, let's just go through sort of our own, what you guys would call your own creative outlets. And I can't speak for you. Can you do me a favor?
What if I paid you?
And just turn Wes's thing down.
Absolutely.
It looks like I'm talking on his track, but it's just that's how hot he is.
Dude, you're real hot
And
right
it's
now.
because he checked mics like this. I don't know anything about
I did
Billie
not. I
Eilish.
spoke at normal
I
volume.
did not. Yes. So, that looks much better. Yes, that's perfect. Wes, let's start with you.
Let's start with you, buddy.
What do you love?
Dude, your mic's perfect now.
What do you feel like is a creative outlet for you?
For a long time, it's been writing, scripts, some short story stuff. In more recent years, really the creative outlet for me has been like, and analyzing is the wrong word, but like being more of a critic of movies that I see and thinking more critically about it, like helps me create. It doesn't sound like a creative outlet, but it is. Like analyzing and like really thinking about something, like a work of some kind, whether it be film or television.
Any others?
That's really the main. I mean, playing guitar every so often.
Right.
I rarely ever like write anything though. It's more just playing around.
Right.
But yeah, the majority of the time it has been writing, like scripts or stories or whatever. Yeah.
For me, the
Trevor.
big one for Trevor, and I'm Trevor, is Trevor Smith. The big one for me is writing music and lyrics. So
You released an album, Trevor, under the name Peyton James Walker.
Right.
That's the name of the album?
Yeah, I'm looking to not get noticed at all.
Find my music under Peyton James Walker.
I just thought it had a better ring than Trevor Smith.
Yeah.
Trevor Smith's a little generic sounding.
It's a little boring, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Like if I had to make up a name for something,
right.
Trevor Smith.
Yeah. Plus,
Like on the spot.
Yeah.
like, like my whole, original family that I had
The Smiths.
hates me.
Yeah.
Hates me.
Right.
So I tried to like encompass a new guy,
Yeah.
if you will.
And then notoriety.
Kind of a creative outlet, if you will.
Yeah, and any notoriety you got for that, you didn't want them to be a part of at all.
Exactly.
So that's why you created. At least that's what I took from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I've ever experienced on earth that is quite like coming up with something on an instrument and expressing an emotion through writing lyrics to match that emotion. I'm still not good at it. I'm still very new at it. 5 years is not long to be playing an instrument and writing music. It just isn't in the grand scheme of things. But there's nothing I enjoy more than feeling a gift of like some mix of when you start to feel like you are coming up with something that's you and not just a ripoff of someone else. That is a pretty special feeling, and it is something that I could never release another song in my life and I'd be fine because of how great that feeling is.
Why don't you just slow down?
Okay, sorry.
Not in.
That's a big one for me.
Not in detail.
Yeah.
What other ones?
That's a big
Trevor?
one for me. Another one I would say, I love writing letters.
There we go.
I like writing letters as well.
Okay.
So, typewriter.
Okay.
Typewriter.
just leave it at that.
Typewriter, music.
Typewriter.
What I do on the typewriter is not strictly writing letters, and it's not strictly writing music. It's more like stream of consciousness kind of writing, where you have to take your time on a typewriter, and that does something different than if you're sitting at a laptop.
Yeah.
And it's more tactile. And then graphic design. I love graphic design. I've dabbled in and out of graphic design for a long time. It's just not something that I don't think I don't think I'm really good at it. I can recognize good graphic design and I have a taste for sure. I don't think I have the skills to really make it something that's worth like putting a bunch more time into. I do love dabbling and like finding new stuff on Adobe Creative Suite or whatever it may be. So I'd say graphic design, music, and just writing especially with a typewriter or something physical.
Yeah. And I can attest to that. He does have multiple typewriters. He's a guy where it's like if he's moving, for the 5th time in 6 months, he's like, "Hey, can you carry my typewriters in for me?" So
I did say that.
I can. That is true. For me, it would be the podcast. Another one that takes a lot of energy is the band, Me Like Bees. Another one that takes a lot of energy is my job. I'm very thankful that my job is a creative outlet. I come up with roast profiles and
definitely
blend recipes and drink recipes and I think that's really another thing that I wanted to mention here at the onset. Ours are pretty tapioca. Ours are like writing, music, music, in 2 areas, and then the podcast. Ours is pretty tapioca. But so if you're listening and if you've made it through this bumble of an 11-minute intro, which is absolutely my fault, I want to say that I've been thinking about it, and I taught a Sunday school lesson at College Heights 2 years ago, and it was on like being creative as a Christian. And one of the students, I was like, "What do you guys feel like you're creating or whatever?" And one of the students blew my mind, and she like raised her hand. I think she's like 16 or 17 or something. She was like, "I think it's really important that people remember that they can create a space where people feel comfortable to be vulnerable."
Sure.
And I was like, that is so interesting to think about. You can create an environment for people to, so I've been taking that into work. Like, what does that feel like at work? And, so there are a lot of other creative outlets than the ones that we do, and some ones that I came up with.
You're writing a story with everyone around you constantly. You can always create within those confines of like, you make something for somebody and they're using it, or it's just like it's endless in terms of creativity you can get inside of your own life,
Yeah. So some just lists that I came up with that are, some are on the beaten path and some are off. Graphic design, music, visual art, whether that be, painting or I guess printmaking could be visual art.
3D art.
Writing, creating events / spaces, like an event coordinator definitely creates. Woodworking, home projects, i.e. like I'm working on a deck, and that feels very creative and tactile for me. And
the feeling of accomplishing that.
Yeah, and I'm learning how to square off edges, and I'm more, and so home projects, whether that look like you're building a fence, and I'm sure
eventually, yes.
At times that feels like, I'm problem solving and I'm creating something. And interior design, I think that's a really cool thing that I've just been recently thinking about as I try to make my home more of a home. Crafts, whether that be jewelry making. I've got a buddy that creates beeswax wrap for it's an eco-friendly saran wrap substitute, so you can cup your leftovers with it. It's machine washable. I mean, he's crazy.
I would add one more that I forgot about. I'm just getting into it, really. I've only built one, but I'm now building yours. I'd like to do one every year if I can, but building guitars myself too.
Right, okay.
So I work at MJT, it's a guitar company, but I also love the hands-on stuff. I don't have as much time for it, but after hours, I like to go and spend some time working. Yeah, get my hands dirty and feel the process. Yeah. So I like doing that as well.
And then lawn work / landscaping. And then mixology. So like every time we're coming up with a new drink, or I do that at work, like I said. So if you're hearing this and you're like, well, I don't make any music, it's more than that. I think that we'll get into why it's important that you have something that you feel like you're investing in and enjoying and really enjoying, and for the sake of it, and whether it becomes something else or whatever, I think that's beside the point, at least for the discussion of the episode.
I mean, if you're a parent and you have 3 kids, you can create a world for them. You know what I mean? You can create all kinds of stuff. You don't have to do anything with music or any painting or the beaten path ones. don't even have to come into play.
Well, I didn't mention it in my list because I'm not doing it anymore, really, except for Sunday school a little bit. But like working at camp, various camps that I've been at, you got to be creative in terms of how you entertain the kids, how you plan what you're going to do, and that's a very creative environment where you have to think on your feet, and that was a really fulfilling job for a while because of that.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's similar to coaching, where it's like you're creating a separate relationship with each individual player or student because each one is going to gravitate towards a different persona differently or whatever. And so it is definitely more than painting and making music and writing and stuff. And that's really what I wanted to get across before we get into it.
No question.
So let's get into the meat of the episode. I wanted to talk about this, and so I did a little research. In a 2010 American Journal of Public Health study found, and I will link this in the description, and there's a bajillion other things that I could have honed in on, but the biggest thing that I got from it was doing something that you enjoy lowers your blood pressure, your stress, and your BMI. Which is crazy.
For the layman, BMI is
body mass index.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, which is crazy because it's like science is literally saying, oh, your brain and your body respond to things that you enjoy doing, which is just, it sounds obvious, but
it's not just a dopamine hit. I think that's like the common misconception of like joy or doing something that's enjoyable is you're just getting because it's like one of those things that just echoes around the echo chamber of culture of like people know what dopamine is somehow by mass culture references, but it's like there's a lot more that goes on physiologically than that.
Yeah. It was specifically for the stress one. It was it lowers the output of some stress hormone. You know, I didn't want to put the science word because it was like whatever, but basically what they boiled that down to is it lowers your stress.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not dopamine. You know, it's like, well, the inverse is true too. The bad things that your brain produces.
Yeah, I mean, you could be in a horrible mood and be creating something, and you don't even enjoy it right then the whole time. You push through that, and you'll get to the next time maybe you do it, you'll have that visceral emotion.
It's more of an investment too. Yeah. So also another thing that lends credence to this is the arts therapy has been recognized as a profession since 1991. So it's literally been a vocation people get paid for professionally to treat patients through the arts, which is, again, more credence to the point of the episode. Episode. And creative outlets can also provide a break from mental fixation on negative things. Kind of get your mind off of stuff.
Definitely.
The only couple that I found of or thought of was like someone says something stupid at work or whatever. It's just like really bugging me, and I get home and I go straight to band practice. Gone.
Yeah,
you know,
it's one of the only when you're fully whatever your thing is when you're fully in that. It's one of the only things that can really turn my brain off. That and maybe like watching a really good film. I think those two are the only ones that can really turn my brain completely off. And recharge or whatever it is. You know.
Yeah. I think one thing that's interesting for me, a lot of people go, this is kind of a tangent, but a lot of people go to a movie.
Ready to cut you off.
A lot of people
We're 19 minutes.
Get that get that feeling from watching a movie where they can turn their brain off. And I think mine accomplishes the same thing by turning a separate part of the work brain on for me.
Sure.
But it ends up accomplishing the same thing. So I think
because a lot of these creative things are work, right? And we'll get to that later. But so it's like it doesn't because a lot of those like band, it sounds leisure, but it's not. Yeah, so
it's an interesting.
You're never really turning your brain off. That's probably a generalization.
But I think the point I was trying to get to was it's a cross section of the relaxation, enjoying something that you like, and putting your brain to
left brain and right brain.
Yeah, it's the cross section of both of those things of like doing something productive, maybe not
Right.
in a physical sense productive, but you're doing something, accomplishing something while also like relaxing yourself.
Yeah.
Because like to me, watching a movie is relaxing, but my brain is
You're not
constantly
vegging out.
Yeah, my brain
Yeah.
is constantly engaged in it and like picking it apart and analyzing it. But yeah,
Yeah, the word that's coming to mind, Sabbath, maybe.
mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily rest, but it could recharge you in a different way.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and the way we're supposed to spend the Sabbath isn't necessarily doing nothing,
right.
You know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's kind of what it feels
Yeah.
like to me. Anyway, yeah, and then another kind of similar to what Pate was saying is you're able to express feelings that are hard to put into words, whether that be you're just like so pissed and you're like, I'm gonna go work on my deck.
Right.
You know, you're just like,
Babe,
you know.
why is there a hole in the deck?
Or I had coffee with Gabe from the Wannabe Critic this weekend, and he mentioned that, you know, the bees, Me Like Bees covers Sabotage, and he's like, the best example I can think of is when music can emote more than words can, is just like when the beginning of Sabotage hits. It's like, that's not a word. You can't
Sure.
put the dun, 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 dun. You know, you
Yeah.
can't put that into a word,
Uh-huh.
but it's like you feel it right when it happens. And so that's another way that creative outlets can be beneficial for you, is you can at least chemically, or your brain and your heart work together to maybe work out some feelings that you're going through or whatever without, you know, actually having to sit down and have a conversation about it, I guess.
Yeah. It lives in that song now instead of
Yeah.
boiling up
Yeah.
in you.
And the hard part about that is if it's a song that's out, it's like you,
In the world.
yeah, that literally that feeling and that idea is cemented, you know,
Yeah.
which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Sure.
But,
And we'll get into that, I think, right?
yes, we'll get into that, I think.
Right?
Right. So what I wanted to do now is just pick one of our outlets each, and we'll just kind of dissect it, and the other two are going to grill the other one and
Nice.
ask why you really enjoy it and if it's worth it and all those interesting questions that can come through when talking about stuff that we're creative about.
Yeah.
Who've I got here? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. Okay. Yeah, for me, it's would I have to choose between writing lyrics and music, or
You have
can
to
those
pick
be the
one.
one? Those can't be the same.
You can just say music and then we'll be like,
What do you mean?
exactly.
Uh,
Let's talk about music.
yeah, playing and writing music, I think.
Okay.
Is it for me? I mean,
playing or writing,
playing and writing.
playing or writing. Which one? Pick one.
You can't do one without the other, in my opinion.
If he doesn't, I guess technically if he doesn't make instrumental music, then music to him is...
I guess I meant playing as in like playing live for people.
Oh.
No.
Okay, you meant it
Just
as
playing it.
Just playing.
Just
Gotcha.
Playing guitar.
Allowable.
And writing on the guitar.
I'll permit it.
So, just talk
What do you want to know?
Talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Just keep talking.
Why you feel like... And that's
Trevor Smith.
That's why I cut you off. So
Yeah.
why do you do it right now? At
I
least?
couldn't even tell you why I started doing it. I think just gravitated towards I don't know. I think the problem with the perception of music, but guitar especially, is that it's so accessible for anybody. Like anybody can play guitar. Like that's the perception, I think, of, and people do it for other reasons than people do it to attract people. People do it to be famous. People do it to make money immediately, or it's just a prop a lot of the time for people. So I never really felt, I was attracted to guitar before I even could really recognize that stuff. And it was just something about how how limited it is because you've only got this. I could never get into piano. I tried to, very hard actually, and it's too big for me. It's too big for my mind to comprehend. Every note is on that piano, whereas you don't have every note on a guitar. You've got a limited amount of notes. So I think being in a box a little bit is helped me get attracted to it and stay in it. And I'm kind of, I think what kept me in it also is I'm a little bit tenacious when it comes to setting my mind to something. So early on playing instrument, and you know this, it's very difficult to get through playing guitar and actually having music come out because it's so hard to build up those muscles on your hand, especially that I'm talking too much about this.
I remember trying to get you to play guitar when you were younger, and you were just like, nah, I'm good. Like, I remember having conversations like, I could teach, like, you'd maybe be downstairs just like doing whatever on the guitar, not really playing. And I'd be like, you want me to teach you how to do something? You're like, nah.
See, I think I really wanted to learn it on my own.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to learn anything from anybody on it. I was like, I want to figure this thing out by myself. Now, obviously, you have to look things up when you're learning an instrument to really know what you're doing, but I didn't want to I wanted to have some kind of original filter through the guitar. So I didn't want to learn too much, and I still don't try to learn too much music from other people. I try to take the building blocks that they use and then just shut myself off and mess around. What else? What
are some things that it has taught you?
It has taught me
the process
of doing
sitting
it.
there and fiddling, or whatever.
To do it regularly, even if I don't feel like doing it.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, but I've seen it. Again, it doesn't really work at the time you're doing it. It really opens up like the next time or the time after that, I felt like. And also I've learned to put it down every once in a while where I don't play for like a month. And then I come back to it and it's like, I've got a lot to play where I don't think it would have been there if I had been playing every single day. So sticking with a regimen or whatever you want to say, playing, making yourself play, even though it's like, I don't really feel like it right now, is something. And then on the inverse of that is putting it down every once in a while feels pretty good when you get back into it.
Okay. Let me follow up then. Do you feel like, does the rhythm of that or the passion of that or the act of actually doing it, does that change with the seasons of your life then? Since you are saying, well, maybe I'll put this, whether you mean this idea specifically or this whole like creative outlet, I'm going to put this down for a little bit. Either life's getting crazy or, I feel like I'm not really enjoying it like I feel like I used to. I'm going to take a break. So if that is the case, does something else replace it? Or, how does that work when life, if it's not a vocation, when life, is taking up more, work's crazier,
Yeah, I would say it naturally takes the place a little bit of that. I think to me, playing music, playing and writing music is so like deep rooted now that even if I didn't play for 5 years and I picked it back up in 5 years, it would still feel the same. And I would still do it as much as I could. But definitely things will take the place of it. I mean, sorry. I've been putting, a good example is the last couple of years, work has been that thing of I've been pouring basically everything I have into creating an environment at work for people and structure and, really digging in to make MJT whatever I can. Like I'm not gonna gum in there as one person and change it, but I can do my part in terms of I'm trying to lift it up, So, and there's a lot of creativity that goes into that, and energy that goes into that. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. Other things take the place of it. But I also think if I put it down for however long, I can't really help but go back to it every once in a while. I just feel that draw. Like I would love to hear my guitar right now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't even have to, it's not even about playing it either, especially with electric guitar. Something about just plugging it in and hearing it will give you that, that feeling, I guess. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
I think so. Is the let me take a drink. Is the hard work involved in now? Specifically in this scenario, I'm talking about a song or anything music related. So whether that be writing a song, recording a song, releasing a project, filming a video, whatever. So in any of those scenarios, do you feel like the hard work and toil through to see that through is worth the payoff at the end? Now, you can pick whichever scenario you want, right?
Yeah, I think...
Or is it different, I guess?
I think that's the hardest part for me. I think the...
Because Pete loves the studio.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not even sure that at the end of it, he's like...
Yeah.
But he just freaking loves being in it.
And anybody that does create on a regular basis will know it's never going to be what you think it's going to be. Ever. I mean, anything you talk about and anybody, you listen to directors talk, you listen to artists talk, you listen to whoever, it's never going to end up how you thought it was going to be in your head. And that's basically everything in life. I mean, it's like hardly ever is it ever going to pan out exactly how you thought. So that's the difficult part for me is getting to answer your question, recording something, getting it down is not exactly how I thought in my head. And that's hard to say, yes, this paid off completely. To me, the payoff happens so early on the writing process. And the difficult part for me specifically is... Actually, I have really good sections of songs. I have I'm like killer chorus right here, but I just cannot find the verses for it.
Some say verses? I got some verses.
Or, I know there needs to be a bridge here or something to freshen up this thing. I just cannot find it. So that's the difficult part for me. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many songs I have written, but they're not complete. Like hardly any of them are completely finished. So that's the difficult part for me is actually I think being equipped with the knowledge and the education in music, I think that's what I'm lacking to actually sit down and hammer out a section, even though I may not believe fully in it. You know what I mean? Because it serves a song.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. That was the end of my questions, unless you have anything else you want to add. We'll obviously wrap up.
Yeah.
But not now. Sorry,
right.
Listener or viewer.
Yeah, we've got Jake
We're
and Wes.
only going to get Trevor's stuff.
Yeah. The only other thing I would say is man, I hope so much that everyone finds whatever the thing is that this does for me, because before I was doing it has really opened my ability to share anything about my experience, or at least also seeing my experience through other people too, of empathizing or whatever you want to call seeing patterns in your life and then seeing it in someone else's, I can connect to that. It's really just opened my emotional capacity, I think.
That's the nature of music too,
right?
Like, which is so unique to that. But yeah,
I would say just it's absolutely worth whatever the sacrifice is to. It just makes you so much healthier in terms of going through your daily life, even if it's not your vocation, even if making something, creating something, even if it's as simple as like, I don't know, making if you have roommates or you have, family members that you're living with, just create something, I don't know, just every day's kind of a blank canvas, and whatever that creative outlet is, I think it's super important to give into it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't make $1 for it.
Not one. Yeah.
That has been This Podcast Is Not For You. Thanks for listening, guys. This has been Trevor Smith.
We
guys,
could, each one could be one part. So just depends on how long you want to talk.
No, I'm not going to talk. I'll be fine.
He said, are you kidding me?
I'll be fine.
All
So
right.
what do you do?
Wes, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We are here to talk about your creative outlet of choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Trevor.
Hi, Trevor.
Nice to meet
Jake.
you.
What
Hi.
would you like to talk about?
For me, it's writing. Mostly scripts, but just writing and coming up with ideas for video or film projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Why do you enjoy doing that? Before we get into any...
For a long time, it was because I wanted to do that as a career.
Okay.
I love movies and I like storytelling in general. I just find I don't know, I've never been able to fully articulate why I like movies and storytelling so much. It's so intangible in some way, kind of like it is with music for you. It's just like expressing something within you in a creative way, and that's the way that it comes out for you. And for me, like, watching movies has always been like really stimulating for my brain, and I think in those ways a lot. And so I guess the closest thing I could have for a reason as to why I like writing and why I like movies in particular as a storytelling method is like I love history, and some of my favorite movies have been like portrayals of historical events because I feel like it can express something that happened in our past that's important to people that would otherwise maybe not know what happened at all
Or care.
Normally.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of why I think a couple of different things that I like blended together into movies. Obviously I like movies as a whole beyond historical dramas or whatever.
Right.
But that's something that drew me to the medium in general. And then writing, I fell in love with in college. I didn't envision myself writing at all. I just wanted to be a director, which most people that go to college do film stuff just want to be a director. But I really found myself loving creating a story and the structure of it and how to be creative within that structure. Kind of like you were talking about, like put yourself in a box and then create something within that. I just liked envisioning the world and the characters and the arc and all of that stuff was so interesting to me, and it was something I hadn't really done before till I got to college and started really enjoying it.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to ask one?
You ask your next one, then I'll ask some that I'm coming up with
Okay.
as I go.
So you're sitting down.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to write or work on or edit, at whatever point in the process you want to do this. I'm going to work on this script. I'm gonna work on this storyboard,
Mm-hmm.
or what do you feel like you are gaining from that in whatever step? Like I said,
Yeah.
it's if you're editing, if you're okay, well, I've got a nugget of an idea for a short film.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sit down and write the script or work on that script from this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. What do you feel like you're gaining from sitting down and doing that? What leads you to want to do that, I suppose, would be a better way to...
Yeah, it's been hard for me in recent years because,
life happened.
well, to me, so much of writing a script in particular, as opposed to writing just a narrative, is for it to be made into something visually. And it's been hard for me for the past few years is because
So stories, just for listeners, stories are not scripts.
Right.
Necessarily.
Like, I guess whenever I'm just making the distinction between writing a script and writing just like a short story,
Okay.
like you would read in a book.
Well, naturally, the implication of a script is that someone will read it.
It's written.
It will
to
be read by an actor,
It's
or it will
written
be read
to be performed and
Correct.
shot. It's not written to be read. Really.
Okay.
If you read a script, it's very utilitarian. It's very practical. There's not a ton of description most of the time. It's very sparse, and that's part of why I like writing them. Is that it's very particular,
Right.
and I always thought about this in college because this is what a teacher told me. It's like it's getting across the visual idea in as few words as possible, and while not being boring.
Right.
So that creative challenge is always super interesting to me. Because flowery writing and stuff, I get lost in, especially when I'm reading too. When I read something, I have a hard time not picturing it shot like a movie. So it's been hard for me to sometimes come to books that are already being made or there's already a movie for, because I'm picturing my version of the adaptation, which I know is not a good way to approach reading something, and I've tried to break myself of that in recent years, but for a long time, I almost wouldn't read something if it was already
adapted.
I would just watch the movie because I'm just like, well, I'm not going to be able to make it, which is a stupid way to think about it. It's a arrogant, early 20s way of thinking about
Denis
it.
wanted to make Dune for 40 years.
That's true.
And he finally
And it was
did.
already made once.
Yeah.
So. But no, I think it's hard for me now because there's less opportunity to write something with the possibility of it being made. And there wasn't necessarily more opportunity for that when I was like living in LA or anything, because I was a long way from the ability to make something in LA. But I've come to realize how difficult it is to actually get something made. So it's been hard for me to motivate to come back to writing stuff. But whenever I do, so doing some of the stuff that you and I have been talking about recently, that's been really cool because there's potential of stuff being made from that. And so I can think in those terms.
More than potential, right? I mean...
Yes.
Okay.
But when starting it...
I think what he means is we're working on more ideas than what will probably get made.
I gotcha.
So every single
Something's
thing...
going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that... Because something is going to happen, there's the potential of I started thinking, okay, the other fun thing about writing a script is okay, then how do I do this? How do I make this?
Sure, practical.
And that's another fun creative process as well.
Yeah.
So when I sit down to write something, there's a lot going into writing a script, more so than there is just telling this story. And I try and make my brain
Let's just talk about let's say you finish a script. What do you get from that? I think is what Jake is asking.
It's a mixed bag for me. I get excited because I accomplished it, I wrote it, but the hard thing with a script is that's only one aspect of writing, of filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's one phase of writing. You write while you're shooting and you write while you're editing as well. So to me, it's
just writing the script isn't enough for you.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag because I love writing the script.
Yeah.
But I also feel that
really
yearning to want to
see that
make
visually.
it.
Yep.
Because I see it in my head.
Right.
I think there's a good amount of script writers that just write the script and they like writing the script and then they hand it off and they are like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
And maybe they have feelings about like how it's eventually made.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of ones I've heard talk about it, they're like, yeah, I didn't like it very much. And I'm like, that's as blasé as you are about it. I would be furious if I turned in a script and it was terrible, or like the adaptation was nothing like I intended.
Take a 2-second break. And do whatever you need to do.
But
No. I've got another question for you that's along the same lines. Because I'm thinking of this in terms of my perspective on like doing a little music thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can go home for 30 minutes. I can play guitar and have a little 2-3 chord progression thing. And that does that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I can use that in something. That's like really hard to do, I think, I would imagine, for writing a script.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, do you go home and you're like, these two lines of dialogue are awesome. This 1-2 rat-a-tat is like, I love this. I want to use it in something. Or can you even do that because you have to be in the mindset of writing the whole script?
I think more in lines of visuals than I do dialogue.
Okay.
I'll get a feeling from a shot in my head or stuff. And they always say like 90% of writing a script is done in your head beforehand.
Right.
And that's really true. Like,
I just imagine that's really hard.
I don't sit down to physically write something until I've thought about it for like a year.
Right. I would imagine that's really hard to get. I guess what I'm asking is, how do you get immediate feedback? Like what Jake's
fulfillment?
Yes,
or like,
yes.
Yeah.
Because I have a musical thing and I can hear it right now, even though it's not finished, let's say, it's still a new thing and I get to put that in a song or save it for this one or move it to this one or whatever.
The most immediate thing is having someone read it. But I don't really, which is why I've kind of not done it as much recently.
Okay.
But the thing that we're working on has sparked that again. I've been able to do that kind of creative thinking again.
We're canceling the record, so.
Oh, okay.
We're still doing the videos.
For
but
silent
like,
films.
there might not be scripts involved because it's just a highly visual thing, but storyboarding.
The commercials?
Yeah.
The scripts?
True.
Yeah.
But like doing that stuff has really sparked that because of the potential of making it.
Yeah.
You know, and not feeling like I'm wasting my time a little bit.
There's a potential for really good quality. You're doing it with people that you love.
Yeah.
And you want it to be good for them too. And that's pretty cool.
So to kind of answer your question, whenever I have ideas and stuff, I kind of log them away for the future.
Sure.
It sounds more like depressing than it is. It's really not. I still get some creative stimuli from like thinking in those terms and thinking in terms of visuals and storytelling. And I get a lot of inspiration from watching other movies or watching documentaries and listening to or reading books and whatever. Like, so there's a lot of stuff going on that still is satisfying and stimulating. I might not get like the resolution payoff that some people do from their creative endeavor. Like they don't have something. I don't necessarily have something complete at the end of the writing process.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a script or an idea, but I don't have the finished thing.
Yeah.
So I in more recent years have tried to just focus on the fun of the brainstorming process
like the
almost.
Pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the gathering inspiration is like, this thing's kind of cool. This thing's kind of cool. I like this. And
as Dame Hannah Montana would say, it's the climb.
sure.
He's not sure if she would say that, but yes. Yeah, I think
Is she a dame?
a great way.
Hannah Montana is not Miley Cyrus.
A great way to think about that is, for me, is we were watching King Richard in theaters, and it was just me and Chelsea, and Jonathan Bernthal had this really, really cool T-shirt on, and so I pulled my phone out, and I was trying to get a picture of it, you know, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, that's a really cool t-shirt. I would love to make a version of that for Me Like Bees.
Yeah.
And so it's like anything that could happen anywhere I am.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like that, where it's like, oh, that's really cool. I'm going to capture that, and hopefully we can pull something.
Hang
from
on to it.
Yeah, and because I have so many of those for.
Sure.
I
for
could list
anything.
off to you 10 ideas I have for movies.
The home video movie.
Yeah, that's one Kevin and
That
I
one
actually
and,
wrote. We finished the whole script of that too.
That one and
Exogenesis.
Exogenesis.
Yeah.
I mean, man.
I think the Teddy Roosevelt one's my favorite, probably.
Mhm.
So yes, I totally get the. I'm always kind of open to seeing something I enjoy and something that I can pull from. So
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move to you, Jakey.
I want to ask him one
Oh,
more
okay.
thing.
I don't want to run out of time for you, though. That's what
We're out of time.
What has all this taught you?
Um,
The going away from it for a little bit, coming back, and realizing that maybe as a director you also enjoyed writing, or what do you feel like it's taught you?
It's taught me to not put so much pressure on myself in terms of like.
I am losing it here, man.
Well, really, what it's taught me is like that you don't have to do the creative thing for a living.
Yeah.
And you can still work on the things that you like creatively. And if the opportunity comes, great. And then you take that opportunity. Something like the film industry, you have to want to sacrifice everything else in your life for.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And I'm okay with that. And so being in that world and writing and creating stuff has taught me to not be so like wrapped up in that stuff, to use it as a creative outlet and make things that are interesting or even just thinking about that stuff, but to not wrap my identity up in it. Because I think a lot of people with their creative endeavors can do that to a point where it's unhealthy.
Definitely.
Especially if my identity was completely wrapped up in being a filmmaker, guess what? I'm not a filmmaker right now. So if my entire identity was wrapped up in that, what do I have? You know what I mean? So I think doing this stuff and not making it has taught me to be okay with that and to use what I can get from the process and be okay with the not completing it. It's not always fun
Right.
to have this idea that I'm passionate about. It's like, this is a great idea and I would love to see this, but the likelihood of me making it is slim. It's not impossible,
Right.
but it's taught me to be like patient and content.
Yeah. And that sort of plays into pace. Like, it depends on the reason you wanted to do it, which either could change or you could
It definitely
find
has.
out that you really, I thought it was because I wanted to move out to LA and grind up the ladder, but really I learned that I don't want to do that. And I
Yeah.
just love doing it.
Yeah.
So it can kind of.
I've told this to Steph many times because she asked me, is like, do you not like miss that wanting to do that stuff? And it's like, if I could make stuff here with people that I like, not in the industry, and make a career, absolutely I would do that. But the way the film industry is, that's really hard.
Yeah.
And it's not impossible, but there's other things in my life that take priority over what I do for a living. I mean, we kind of talked about that in the history episode where we talked about previous generations, like what you want to do for a living, like wasn't really a question. So like, I've really come to be at peace with the idea, like what I do for my job is okay to not be this massively fulfilling, like creative thing that, and I think that's a cultural thing right now, is like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life kind of thing, which to some extent that's true, but it's also shallow in some ways.
But that's more to the point that it's especially like when you have kids or whatever, it's like you're creating a family.
Yeah.
Like that should be, especially biblically, right? It's like that should be number one like
Yes.
creative output.
Right
so,
now, I'm building a marriage with my wife, and over the last couple of years, we've been working on that, building a home together and building a life here with with all of our friends and our family. And then whenever we get to that next stage, we're adding on to that,
building a crib and then
building a crib, physically building a crib. No, yeah, I completely agree. Priorities change throughout people's lives, and I think some people don't want to change their priorities. They get very wrapped up in the priorities that they have, and especially when it comes to like a creative outlet or like what I want to be, I want to be a godly Christian man, a good husband, a good father whenever we have kids, a good friend, what I do for a living.
Horrible brother.
I want to be a horrible brother.
Which I'm working on. Getting there every day, a little bit more.
Just chipping away.
The thing you got to do is just wake up and try to be worse than you were the day before.
Exactly right.
We should have an anti-motivational Instagram.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the things I want to be, and being a filmmaker or whatever is way less important of an identity, Yeah.
It's just an outlet.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly. And it's important
Exactly.
to have that outlet.
It is important.
Creatively.
Jacob, tell us about your outlet.
Do you want to keep going?
Absolutely. 100%.
Guys for John.
100% guys for John. No question.
The next episode is super short, so
Okay.
I don't even care if we have to cut the first section out. I'd rather it be this section.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're out of time.
Thanks for having
me. We're good. Tell us about your outlet of choice.
56 minutes.
You've got to choose one.
Here's the thing.
He's choosing 4.
I'm going to ask what you guys would rather hear about.
Oh, okay.
Would you rather hear about me talk about Me Like Bees or the podcast? That'd be kind of meta, but...
I would... much?
Say it at the same time. Ready?
The same way as we did?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
I would like to hear about the
bees.
podcast. Oh,
what do we do? Drop a comment on what you want to hear.
That's what I was going to say is I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast. So I don't know.
We can talk about the bees another time because we have...
That's true. We're
wanting to do a bees episode at some point.
A well
that
we can draw from for sure.
Yeah, talk about the podcast.
Okay.
I'm not being a bad brother. Dang it.
Yeah, that's true. What do we do now? Do you want me to ask the questions?
No.
I can.
I would love to, just generally, I'd like to hear where you feel like you're being creatively fulfilled in the podcast. Do you feel the most creatively fulfilled when you're writing episode ideas? They're coming to you when you're recording, or when you're editing, or when you're coming up with design stuff, or
the branding.
What was the thing that jumped out the most?
Honestly, I think the most fulfilling part of it is just trying to... I am a very, very, to a fault, prideful person. And so I'm struggling with the idea of like, what does it mean to be prideful, and what does it mean to have pride in something, you know?
Yeah.
And so as we kept doing it, and I mean, the beautiful thing about podcasts and what I'm so proud about us for is we're still doing it.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it surprised me multiple times that we're still going.
He was like, what episode is this, 50? And I was like, 70. He was like, oh, wow. So, yeah, it was just, that's what I'm most proud about us for. And so I'm getting to the point where I'm proud of, for us, for committing to something as a unit, which is hard to do when we're all adults.
Yeah.
And following through. And so I'm feeling the most creatively fulfilled when I'm trying to up the quality of everything. Having a dedicated space was really fun, making it much easier for us to stay engaged in the outline, and having the live monitor thing and getting the lights and stuff. So that's been probably the most fulfilling part of the podcast. I kind of like writing outlines, but the problem is the nature of my I think I'm gifted at just being able to think on my feet. And so that is very antithetical to normally what I would do.
Yeah.
You could give me 4 bullet points and I could give an hour and a half speech on it.
And if you put too much effort, I've noticed this for myself when writing a couple. If you put too much effort into the outline, right when it starts to go off the outline, you get a little bit like, dang it.
Yeah.
Even though what's happening is what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like it can become a little more stiff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just the fact that we write outlines, right? I mean, most startup podcasts that your buddies start, or, you know, my friend that's in this band also has a podcast or whatever, you listen to them and they're just, it's rambling. It's nonsense.
Right.
And if you've listened to the podcast long enough, you know that I hate podcasts and I don't even listen to them. So the fact
So how would you know? How do you know people are just rambling?
Well, those are the ones that I tried, I guess.
Okay.
And then, so people are surprised to hear that we write outlines, I guess. That's my point. So I think it's good that we do it, but we do
slide around it pretty naturally.
It's kind of hard for me to do that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think.
Do you think the amount of effort that we've put in, and you as you individually, through 70, this is what, going to be 75, something like that? 76?
Not quite 75, but I think this is 73, 74 maybe.
Okay. Is worth it? Has the payoff been equal to the amount of effort that we've put in? Because the idea at the origin was, we just want to get together and talk to each other because we really enjoy that.
Right.
That's what we always got from getting together. Do you feel like you're still getting that?
No.
Okay.
No, it's definitely not worth the effort for sure. But the thing is, when I look back and say we have 70 episodes, that's where it's worth it to me.
Gotcha.
You know, so sort of, but not really anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it got, you know, it's, and that's a downfall of my personality is anything I do. And that's why I have to whittle down things that I do now is I'm gonna really, really go for it, you know, and whether that means like, dude, if we could just get paid to sit here and like we were like Rhett and Link, I would love that. Yeah. So it's like, you know, just people saying like, well, I don't care if it takes off. It's like this, if this was like, all right, guys, writing sesh at 10 a.m. every Monday, Tuesday we're recording it. That would be awesome. Yeah. So it's like, I'm not even going to pretend that I don't want that to happen.
Sure.
But.
No, you shouldn't.
Right. And so it's like, all the effort that we're putting in feels like, I mean, and Chelsea was like, I didn't think I would like this episode or whatever, but I really did. Like, it was really, and I was like, I know our podcast is really good, but I don't know what to do about it. You know, so it's
well, and the antithesis is I'm usually more self-deprecating. I think I naturally slide into that role, so that's probably been difficult for you to combat that. I feel like Wes is probably closer to me in that regard in terms of like how good he thinks the podcast is. And
I'm naturally
I think it's good.
Braggadocious person.
I really enjoy listening to the episodes back because I think we're getting better and
definitely I feel that too.
Yeah, I'm probably in between the two of you a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's what's beautiful about the team, right? Yeah. It's like you got one over here, one over here, one over here.
Right. But I get what you mean in that it would be great if this were to take off because we enjoy doing it a lot.
Yeah.
And to be enabled to continue to do that and to know that people are enjoying it.
Yeah. I would also encourage you in this way, and I've said this to you a number of times, and it's really true about podcasts. The amount of effort that we have put in, however many episodes we have gotten to, even though people haven't listened to them yet, podcasts have a life of like, once people do hear it, they backlog. Yeah. And they go through all of the episodes before that. That's how I am. That's how everyone I know that listens to podcasts that's serialized in some way, they listen to every episode. I mean, once you get caught on, so that's not
once
necessarily,
you buy into it.
Not going to happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then what Wes was saying actually goes really naturally into what it's taught you. Yeah. What has the podcast in all its foibles and good things
I'd say that
you?
I'd say that the biggest things that come to mind is, I mean, you have to, communication is the biggest thing. With whenever you're working. If I guess this has taught me how to work on a team, in a team, as a team member, whatever you want to say. Communication is huge. Very clearly, I think, we were all like, you're good at this. You do this for free on pro bono in your own free time, and you have a deadline. And I think we're all really good at being like, right now, I just can't do this. Like when I was editing every episode, I was like, I don't think I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
Pate was like, I would love to help you edit. So it's like, Wes was like, oh, if we do video, obviously that's my thing.
Yeah.
That's great. So I think, and we've been very good at communicating that. And I think that your thing, if you are working with other people in your endeavor or whatever, it's only going to be as healthy as the communication is. And that's the same with a marriage, and that's the same with, a work relationship. Same thing for me and Kurt, And so, I think those are the few things that it's taught me. And I think it's okay to care a lot. But the cool thing is to not care,
Yeah.
Like that's like, oh, it's whatever. We just like do it for fun. And it's like, we do.
Yeah.
And it's not for
That's
you.
a good way to put that. Yeah.
But it's like, it's okay.
But we care
to
about it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is you want to have pride in what you do.
And you can care about it for multiple reasons. I can care about it because of you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to care about it because of anybody else.
Yeah. And like, we can pretend like, oh, we don't care if people listen, which to some extent we don't. But like, I think at least I know you and I do. It would be nice if people were listening to it, because then we feel like we're doing it for a reason beyond ourselves too, and maybe people find it interesting. Maybe it makes them think about something,
Yeah. That's the most fun thing about it is like, I mean, I don't know. My mom listens. She even tried to listen to the Halo episode. Yeah. She's like, I listened to your newest episode. And I was like, really? And she's like, well, you were just talking about video games, so I just stopped. And I was like, that's fine.
And Dad listens to it too, which is surprising.
So yeah, it's cool that
we'll get a text every so often. It's like, you're wrong about 1969. It's a better year of music.
So yeah, I think the cool thing is you don't know where people. I mean, we have people that listen regularly that aren't in America. Like this analytics tell me that. And so it's
we have no idea who you are, but
we don't know why, and you know, so it's like. That's cool.
How has the feeling of it changed, do you feel like, since, if you had to break it up into, I don't know, how many sections, I guess, 3, like how it felt at the very beginning when we were doing it, how it felt, I don't know, maybe at 223 when we were kind of like clipping.
Right.
And now we've been doing it pretty regularly for 2 years, I think, right?
Basically.
So how do you feel like it's changed over that amount of time? In terms of what you get from it and how you feel about it?
I'm not even close to being burnt out.
Yeah.
So when I say it's not worth it, that's absolutely not what I mean.
Okay. Because I feel like, and I don't mean to cut you off and put words in your mouth, I am still super excited every time we sit down to record.
Me too.
Like,
yeah.
It even if I'm not like pumped about whatever the topic is, right when we sit down, it seems like it's just really fun. Yeah. No matter what.
Yeah.
Because knowing the three of us, it always takes a turn that we're like, no, that was good. That was a little
For
cool
sure.
little thing.
I was like dreading the history episode. I mean, I said that. I was like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like, and then it was one of the best episodes, so I think it's changed because I think at the beginning we were like, wide-eyed innocent, and we were like, we don't even know what we're doing, and that's cool.
Let's talk about movies for 70 episodes.
Yeah. And then sort of in the middle it was like and then this, most podcasts that I know, like people that I know started, I mean, they have 7 episodes.
Yeah.
And they are hot for it for 2 months, 3 months. That's all they talk about.
Yeah.
And now when we post about our podcast, people are like, oh, you guys are still doing that?
Yeah.
Yep. 70 episodes.
Yeah.
That's not a typo, you know? And so, I think the most exciting thing now about it is fun every time we get together and talk about it. The extracurricular stuff regarding the podcast is very fun, and it's very true to the reason why we wanted to do it in the first place.
Yeah,
when we
I
watched
believe-
all of our movies,
I feel like that hasn't
I
changed
think
at all.
that's huge.
Yeah.
Wes mentioned in the best worst movies that we need to watch Moonfall when it comes out. I mean, that's going to
Yeah.
be really fun. And so like the extracurricular stuff where it's just feeding it. Because the best part about it is, and I've had feedback from people that are sort of friends but listen to the podcast. They're like, your guys' chemistry is insane. And so it's like, that's just being good friends.
Yeah.
And so it's like
And there's
anything we do together
Yeah.
makes the podcast better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So-
crazy because there's no
That's
way
why
for
we're
us.
all moving in together.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Sorry, Chelsea. Chelsea.
Sorry, Zach. Zach, we're moving in.
Yeah.
Peyton's moving back in.
All right.
It's funny because there's no real way for us to have a perspective on that, on our chemistry, because we're always in
Especially us. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
we've literally known each other our whole lives. So
Yeah. And Wes is working on being terrible at it. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to get
Yeah.
worse,
Yeah.
but it's just hard.
But yeah,
Right.
anyway, that would be it. I think that basically wraps up the outro.
Yeah.
Even
Mhm.
This was cool.
Yeah. Thanks for
It
listening. and-
really got going and built up into something cool.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Which
I
is-
said,
that's
I
the
feel like
idea,
we could
isn't
talk
it?
about that forever.
Yeah. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. This is
One of these times we're gonna break them open.
This has been and this always will be. This podcast is not for you. My name is Jake.
My name is Wes.
Smith, Trevor.
We will see you later.
Bye.
Oh yeah.
Dude, you're just walking around into everything today.